Welcome to Corcun This Week, the podcast, episode number 2. A lot of news to cover today. We got Roku earnings, Disney earnings. Hulu is maybe going to be fully owned by Disney. We'll find out. T-Mobile's head of their TV department has left. Discovery's new streaming service and more all happening this week. So let's dive into it. Welcome, Jess. Good to have you back.
Hello.
So, since the last week, we've learned a lot about cord cutting. But it's maybe still been hard to find our show. So I got some good news for everybody out there who has been asking for iTunes and Apple Podcast support. We are now live on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and a whole host of other podcasting services. I want to know, though, do you have a podcasting service you want to make sure we're added to? Now, in the show notes on our posts over at corecarsnews.com about this, and on our YouTube video, I do have an RSS feed so you can manually add it. But hey, leave us a comment. Let us know where else you would like us to add our weekly podcast. We'll love to hear from you. So with that, Jess, how was your week? How are you doing?
Good. I think we've all agreed that we're having a very busy week. There's been a lot of news, a lot of things happening. I think we're all a little all over the place.
Definitely. Well, let's dive into the news and get a little focused here. First story of the day: Roku TVs are now the number one selling TV OS in the United States, making up 1 in 3 of sales of all smart TVs in the United States. Now, this is kind of like the Apple, versus Android argument, right? Apple likes to say we are the largest smartphone, and Android's like, well, we sell, all of our OSs sell more. And Roku and Android have a very similar model, right? You give away the OS to all these TV manufacturers, they manufacture the TVs, and Roku gets to have their OS on them and get revenue from ads and subscriptions and more. Where Apple can say, well, we sell more Apple TVs or Apple phones, here. There are other companies like Samsung or whatever could maybe make an argument that they sell more TVs worldwide. But Roku as an OS, when you look at TCL and Sharp and all these other ones out there that are selling Roku TVs, and it allows them to say they're larger. Why is this important? Well, Roku is now making a vast majority of their money through ads and subscriptions. They saw a 79% jump in revenue from ads and subscriptions when you sign up to something through Roku. That is compared to just an 18% jump in revenue from hardware sales. Roku seems to be, hey, we'll give you the hardware very cheap. We'll give you the OS for your TV manufacturers basically for free, so we can make the money on ads. Not only the ads you see in the home screen, but the ads like in Pluto TV and others are the ads you will be getting served from Roku, and Roku gets a cut of that. So I guess, Jess, my question to you is, does this surprise you? Is this, how do you think Roku can keep going with this?
I'm not surprised to hear it. I feel like Roku is just the name that we hear most often. So I have a question for you, though. Is this Roku devices or all Roku products? So it includes the smart TVs and all of that stuff.
The 18% jump in revenue is all Roku devices.
Okay.
Now, I don't believe Roku actually makes any money off the hardware of the TVs. They make the money on the software side, but that includes like the Roku Ultra, the Roku speakers, replacement remotes, etc.
So that makes sense why Roku would see a jump instead of Apple, who doesn't have all those extra products.
It's an interesting market move by Roku because we still see a lot of small niche OSs on TVs. And the downside, I always tell people, buying a TV that has a small OS that's maintained by the manufacturer, once they sell the TV, the profit margins on TVs are extremely small. Mm-hmm. That there's not a lot of incentive for the TV manufacturer to go out there and upgrade that TV, to add new apps, add new software. If you have a Roku app, you're on Roku players and you're on Roku TVs and Sling and Netflix, and it's good. When you have all these tiny TV manufacturers with their own OS that Netflix has to make an app for, and and Sling TV has to make an app for, you can see why app manufacturers love a Roku OS, an Android TV OS, and a Fire TV OS, because it means that they make their app on one platform and it's on so many different devices. Mm-hmm. So I think Roku, I think they've hit something here. I think they've watched Google's success in the Android market. They've watched the fact that, hey, money's in advertising, because I sell you the TV once, and you're going to watch it show after show after show after show, and we can just pound ads into those shows through Pluto TV, through Tubi,
Absolutely.
Through, all these other places. So I guess my question to you is, how are you happy with that? Are you happy taking a cheaper device in exchange for ads, or would you rather pay more for a device and not see ads?
I think that's an interesting question, because it's kind of the same as using a streaming service, where do you want to pay $6 and have commercials, or do you want to pay $40 and have an ad-free experience? I don't mind commercials, so I'm fine with paying less and getting those ads. I would much prefer that.
Yeah, I'm happy with commercials, and I get that there's people who don't like commercials. And
sure, yeah.
There's ways to avoid that. You can pay for the commercial free of Hulu. You can not use the free services and go to the Netflix and the Amazons. On the flip side, to me, it's like I pay for a set number. I'm happy with Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon. Amazon's mostly for the other features Amazon offers. Mm-hmm. But then to supplement that, add in a Tubi, add in the Roku channel, and more. So, how's your balance on that?
I don't know. I feel like I'm just less picky than a lot of people. I'm sorry, my camera's shaking. I think I'm just a little less picky than a lot of people with my ad experience. It just doesn't bother me. I feel like it's different for people like you and me who grew up with cable and commercials and just being used to that, as opposed to newer generations that are coming along. They've never had the commercial experience as much. So I can see why they wouldn't want the ads. They're just used to a straight streaming experience with no commercials, no interruptions. So I get it.
We'll have to keep a close eye on this, because at this rate of growth, the ad revenue from subscriptions or revenue for Roku from ads and subscriptions will be more than double that of their hardware here in a couple years. So keep an eye on this. For all the people who talk about how can Roku survive against the big players, well, when you're seeing 79% jump in ad revenue, this is hot.
Yep.
Well, let's move on to the next story. We heard a few weeks ago that Hulu was maybe going to have Disney as a sole owner, as Comcast and Disney were reportedly in talks right now, since AT&T sold their share back to Hulu. And kind of a weird deal where currently neither Comcast or Disney owns that share. Hulu owns it, and some later date that share will be distributed to one of the other companies. And now Disney and Comcast are in talks. It does seem like Disney wants to own a vast majority of it. Now, yesterday during the earnings call, Disney confirmed that they have had discussions with Comcast. Now, this does not mean that Comcast is guaranteed to sell its share to Disney of Hulu. Comcast just a few weeks ago talked about how important their share of Hulu was to the future of the company. But Comcast needs money. They just paid a ton of money to buy some cable providers in Europe, with Sky being the biggest one. I want to say there was a second one, but I probably think of a different company right now. But to get some of that Disney money, and be able to use that to pay off debts for Comcast and open some runway, may be part of it. Disney says if they do strike a deal with Comcast, they want a deal that will also guarantee that NBC Universal content, which is owned by Comcast, will continue to be present on Hulu. The big question here is this good for the end consumer? Is having Disney with a full ownership of Hulu good or bad for us? Now, Disney has been very cord-cutting friendly recently. They were one of the first companies to sign up with Sling TV and made Sling TV a reality. People never... rewind, 3.5 years ago, pre-Sling TV. There's no PlayStation View, there's no YouTube TV, there's no Hulu Live. And the idea that you would be able to watch ESPN without a $100 cable bill and get all of them was just crazy. And then suddenly, here comes, Sling, $25 at the time, got you ESPN 1, 2, News, ESPNU, and the Disney Channel was included in that, and a whole host of others. This was revolutionary at the time in a way that doesn't seem so nowadays. It's very amazing how quickly all these other services popped up. And Disney was a big part of making that happen. I'd love to know, here's Dish executives walking into Disney being like, hey, I know you came here to renew your satellite subscription contract with us, but we got this streaming thing we want to do.
What do you think?
would you give us permission to sell all your channels on this cheap service to cord cutters at like $25 for all the ESPNs, plus Disney, plus CNN, and all this other stuff? And for Disney to say yes, they must have felt like they were walking on water, walking out of that meeting.
I can't imagine the presentation they would have had to give to make that happen.
There was something there. Maybe I'll get to maybe what drove Disney to do that in a minute. But now they're coming out with Disney Plus. Now they're talking about bundles with Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. That will be this one big bundle, maybe for a discount. You can get your live TV, your on-demand, your Disney content, and your expanded sports lineup for maybe a discount. Or, maybe just get Disney Plus Hulu, and they talked about different bundles to add those in. The question is that good for us? Or is Disney getting too big for their britches? Are they going to have too much control over streaming? I don't know. What do you think, Jess?
I am trying to look at this from both viewpoints. From Disney's standpoint, I completely understand what they're doing. Right around the time of their event, we were hearing a lot about their plan to make Disney Plus very kid-friendly, and then to keep more of their grown-up content on Hulu. And that made so much sense to me, where if you want something specifically for your kids or something family friendly, to keep it on Disney Plus and then keep Hulu over here. And then the bundles and everything, it makes so much sense for them to want to own Hulu. For us, I'm not sure. And I know we've been getting a ton of comments from readers on the Facebook page and emails and everything, just saying this is a disaster. We don't want Disney to own everything. And exactly what you said, they're getting too big for their britches. And I don't know. I'm very interested to see how it all shakes out. I think I would be okay with it personally. I don't see too much of an issue with it, but I understand people's concerns.
I do too. What do you think? Yeah, I do too. Sorry. My thought on it is, though, this is a very different time. You see, Hulu out there is a big competitor, but Netflix is so much bigger. Amazon on the other side is very dominant. While Disney has Disney content, let's be honest, that's not what it used to be in the world. The Disney Channel has lost 70% of its average viewers since 2014, which completely makes sense why they're so eager to get into streaming. And then you look at Nickelodeon and Viacom getting extremely aggressive in streaming content with the purchase of Pluto and their moves into other areas. I don't think it's the competition, the ability for Disney to dominate things the way they did and become unfair in their practices. I don't think it's there as much as it used to be. It's still a big concern here. I'm sure the Department of Justice and the FCC, etc., will have their say on what kind of limitations may go on a deal like this.
Right.
At the flip side, I'm not, with Disney already owning 60% of it, and with this share, they'll have like 65, 67%, maybe somewhere in that range. Yeah. How much control can really Comcast do to stop anything Disney wants to do?
Right, yeah. They'd almost be better off just taking some money and getting out while they can.
There's a lot of truth in that. So I am very interested to see what they do here and how that goes, because I really do think Disney, I like what they're doing a lot here. I do think that these other services that are coming up, the growth of Pluto with Viacom's plans, NBC talking about a separate service from Hulu makes this more likely and more. So I don't know. I'm going to keep a close eye on this. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. But I don't know if this is good or bad. It's kind of one of those, who gets their hands on it at the end of the day? What do they do with it? This could be very good. This could be very bad. We don't know. So let's keep moving on the stories for today. Speaking of everybody trying to get into streaming, Roku's growth, Disney wanting full control of Hulu, 14,000 Americans every single day in the first quarter of 2019, January, February, March, canceled cable every single day. Hey, Jess, can you imagine owning a store? And let's just say you own any store at the mall, and I told you every single day that you go to bed, you'll have 14,000 fewer customers.
That's a huge number.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine just watching I'm sure there's some type of ticker somewhere in one of these companies that shows like current number of subscribers, and just watching that roll down every minute out there. And I know this is across all cable and satellite providers, but some are getting hit harder than others. We know that AT&T had a disproportionately large share of these cancellations. Dish actually slowed down the rate of their cancellations. Of course, they lost subscribers, just not as many as they did in the fourth quarter. And it's going to be interesting to see if this continues. We're looking at, cord cutting being as large as cable, maybe a lot sooner than we expected, a lot sooner than we thought last week when we talked about this.
Right, absolutely.
So 1.28 million American households, not people, households. So that could be 5, 6, 20 people in a household canceled cable TV in the first quarter of 2019. And I want to talk about that number because that's households. And one of the interesting things, you've had roommates, right? Have you ever had a big house where it's like 4 roommates and stuff?
I lived with 8 girls in college. Yes.
Okay, you beat me. But I've had time where it's like 4 guys in an apartment, right? You were out of college, when we were in college. Well, when we all kind of went our own ways, when you're splitting cable back then, it's like, hey, $100 bill between 4 guys, $25.
Yeah.
Whatever. But when we all kind of went our own way, one guy got married, moved in with his spouse, I moved out on my own. Another guy, I moved across state. Well, that one cable cancel turned into 4 different homes without cable.
Yeah.
We're all post-college students. We're all struggling to make it through. I don't even think the married couple got it because, young married couple right out of college. They're looking to save money. So I wonder how many reality homes this turned to. How many, sadly, divorces. How many times you get 2 couples married, they both move out, they sell it, divorces are expensive, they don't have it. So is that 1.28 million really represent 2 million, 2.5 million? There's probably a lot more homes here that don't have cable than that did it last year because of things like this split. How many people just moved out of a parent's house or an apartment that has cable bundled? They didn't get it, so that subscriber doesn't really show up as a cancellation, but there's a new cord-cutting household not paying for it anywhere.
Yep.
So I'm very interested in this. We can look at things like new home starts. I mean, I don't know. Down here in Texas, it seems like I can't go to a corner and there's not some new subdivision being built. I don't know what's like up in Ohio. But with all these homes being built, if anybody watching this video knows how many homes were built in 2018, I'm sure there's a stat out there from the government somewhere.
I'm writing it down. I love research. I'll go look this up later.
Right there. We lost cable subscribers, but I know just around here, probably 200 or 300 homes were built within a couple miles of where I am. That's new households that didn't exist a year ago. So I'm interested to see what happens with this. I'm very interested to see where the growth of this goes. How big? You're a little younger than I am now. I feel like I'm an old guy all of a second in my 30s, but you're a little closer to college. How many of your college friends did that kind of stuff? They moved out where they were sharing it to maybe not sharing it.
Well, not that young. I graduated college almost 15 years ago. It's interesting because after I started working for Cord Cutters News, I was posting about it a little bit on Facebook, and I've had a lot of people send me messages and say, oh yeah, I don't have cable, or yeah, I use Netflix only, and I've actually been kind of surprised about how many people. I think it's easy for us, because we're so immersed in it all day, every day, to just assume that people do this. But yeah, I've been surprised how many people have sent me messages and said, oh, I didn't even know that Sling existed. Cool, I'm going to start using that. It's so much cheaper. So I think the answer is a lot. I think a lot of us in college, we got it for so cheap, and like you said, splitting the bill, how many ways, it seems like a good deal. We move out, and that's another expense that we just don't need.
Yeah. Well, you may have graduated college a lot longer than I thought you did, but I still have you beat by a little bit, fortunately. Maybe I'm dating myself here. But it's very interesting to me, because even back in the very early 2000s, it was like, why would you cancel cable? I remember seeing the homes with the antennas, but it was a money issue back then for us. Cable wasn't nearly as expensive as it is now, but it was still expensive. And I really do see that as a bigger thing nowadays when I talk to people. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see how far this grows.
Yeah.
Where this goes in the future.
Right. Where's the stopping point?
Yeah. Where's that tipping point? Is it when, it's a 50-50 split between cable subscribers and cord cutters? I don't know. We'll have to see. Anything you want to add real quick?
Actually, yes. I was reading the comments on that post, and somebody made a really good point. They did the math and said at 14,000 people dropping pay TV per day, that's over 5 million in 1 year. That's a huge number.
Yeah, that would push us way up. I think we were at just under 3 million last year.
Yeah, so I think you're right.
I think that 5 million is a very realistic number to hit this year. We'll see.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing here is, even if you have money for cable, because I've definitely noticed a trend. The economy's good. People aren't, when I started this 5 years ago, and unemployment was a lot higher, and people were struggling to find jobs a lot more. It seems like I can't trip and not hit a hiring sign down here in Texas right now. It's the content. Disney Plus coming. You can't watch that content Disney Plus. Somebody was complaining, well, you get cord cutting, you have to get CBS All Access. I'm like, no, you don't have to get it. You can get antenna. But if you want the new Star Trek show, even if you're a cable subscriber, you still have to get CBS All Access. So, it's going to be an interesting year. That's for sure. And we'll have full coverage. Well, let's jump into the next topic. And this, I think, is a perfect following to the last one, 14,000 people every day. But Court TV launched this week. It's available right now on Roku. When I'm recording this, it was not available on Apple TV and Fire TV, but they say Fire TV and Apple TV support coming soon for free streaming. Available over the air in a ton of markets, with more markets coming throughout the year. They've already announced a couple dozen additional markets that'll be launching between now and November. And it's the cable network, Court TV, free over the air. They're not the only ones moving into free over the air markets. But I wanted to chat not just about Court TV, because are you a Court TV fan? Do you ever watch any of that?
I don't know if I've ever heard of it until we started talking about it.
I guess dating myself here. O.J. Simpson trial. That's where I really kind of learned about Court TV, because everybody was like glued. I remember being in my office way back, and the verdict trial for O.J. Simpson. I heard it in my car, went in, and there was this old little portable TV, the tiny 4-inch screen with a big antenna out of the back, sitting at a file cabinet with 40 people around it watching the verdict for O.J. Simpson come in live on ABC or something. They were covering it. But Court TV kind of made their name back then because they had gavel-to-gavel coverage of it. And it was a wildly successful cable network, and I think they said they were a top 10 network when it was rebranded as True TV. And then the Court TV part kind of went away.
Yeah.
And I don't know what True TV is now. Practical Jokers and that kind of stuff mostly nowadays. Well, it's back. It's a cable network going free over the air. And what I've heard from a lot of people in the industry is they're watching this like a hawk. If this is successful, we may see more of these small networks jump in to be free over the air. Now, again, we talked about this a little bit. I don't expect it to be, don't look for ESPN, don't look for the Hallmark Channel to do this tomorrow.
Right.
But, if they can prove that there is free content that's successful and profitable with an antenna and streaming online, we'll see. My interesting question here is, we're seeing the growth in antennas, we're seeing the growth of cord cutting, and we're seeing the growth of content overall. Is this going to drive cord cutting faster? Will we see, because there's the Court TV free over there, because there is Disney Plus, because there is the Roku channel now with 10,000 free movies and TV episodes, is that in response to cord cutting? Or is that going to drive more cord cutting?
I think a little of both. What do you think?
I think it is a little bit both. It's definitely a response to the growth of cord cutting. It's definitely a move into the fact that, there is a lot of interest in cord cutting, so let's try to make some money off of it.
Yeah.
I wonder how much this has to do with advertisers being upset. They're spending... Advertising, it costs more now than it did 5 years ago. but less people are watching the advertisement. There's less people watching live TV. There's more people using DVRs to skip it,
Sure.
etc. Well, when you watch something free over there with antenna that's live like Court TV, you're more likely to see the ads. So I don't know. I heard from another executive that a lot of those small, they call them diginets, and I kind of hate the name, but these are those small like 0.4, 0.2 channels, underneath your ABC, CBS, Fox affiliate. And they're basically saying, hey, we have this huge catalog of content. It's not doing anything. It really doesn't cost us a lot of money to have a curated list of, chips and, where are some other ones? I've seen Dragnet's back on TV.
Yeah.
Or no, I don't know if it was Dragnet. There's all kinds of those classic TV shows curated in a list. And we slap some ads around it and we make a profit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it's either that or just have stuff sitting there not doing anything.
Which for years and years is how it worked, right? We heard of the vault, right? This idea that there's this in Hollywood somewhere. I'm sure most of this has been digitalized. I doubt that the old 1950 TV show's film is really still sitting there. Hopefully not. It's being saved and preserved. But they got these probably terabyte hard drives sitting in their vaults full of classic shows. Why not make some money off of this?
Absolutely. I think it's smart, and I think it's also an interesting step toward this a la carte cord-cutting experience that we keep having people ask us about, where you don't necessarily have to buy one of these over-the-top services. There's all these small ones you can just pick and choose. If there's a show that you really miss from the 60s and you want to watch it, there it is. Just get this one channel.
Well, before we move on from the Court TV conversation, Harvey Weinstein, have you followed that court case?
Yes.
Apparently, Court TV is hoping that will do for the new Court TV what the O.J. Simpson trial did for the old one. And they will apparently have gavel-to-gavel coverage of the Harvey Weinstein as their first major court case later this year that they're going to be covering in depth. So if that case interests you, you'll be able to catch it on Court TV.
I think it will. There's so many big names in that case. I think that alone will be enough for them to get a good audience.
You got to wonder how many major A-list stars are going to have to go into the courtroom for that case.
Exactly.
Very interesting. All right, let's move on. TV. T-Mobile TV last year was announced. Huge fanfare. If I remember right when I watched the announcement, didn't they have a band kind of come through?
I think so. It was
quite the deal.
It was huge.
Into 2018, we're going to have a TV service live, disrupting the current status quo. 2018 comes and goes, delayed. Now we've learned that the head of T-Mobile, which was the former Layer 3 head, which is, I would put Layer 3 as more of a cable provider system. You still need somebody to come to your home. They need to put box in your home. They need to do all this typical stuff of a cable provider. Delivered a little differently, but it's basically standard cable-esque practices. And now they've announced that CEO, who came over from Layer 3, who's headed T-Mobile TV, is leaving. There's been talk that they're not able to get the contracts they want. There's been talk about T-Mobile, the bills aren't lining up, the deals aren't lining up, so maybe they would go into a Roku channel or a Amazon channels where you can subscribe to different services. The problem that is the market's becoming kind of cluttered with those. You got Apple doing it, you got Sling doing that, you got Amazon, who's kind of leader in that, and Roku, all saying, hey, you can manage your subscriptions, all these services through us. So you don't have to have 5 different logins. You don't have to have different passwords and all that kind of stuff. So T-Mobile still says they intend to be disruptive. What does that look like? I'm not sure. How do you take the news, Jess, that the head of T-Mobile TV is leaving?
I think it's a really interesting time. I think that's what caught my attention. Right whenever they are trying to do this huge disruptive move, that's when he chooses to leave. Do we know how long he was there before he left?
He was with Layer 3, I believe, for a very long time. And it could be one of those deals that he came in And I you see this a lot in business too, where it's like, hey, I will come in for a particular period of time, right?
Right.
I will, we will make sure the merger goes smoothly. We'll transfer everything over. I'll train up your staff. I'll do all this. Typically, though, that's like, we'll get this new service of yours off the ground, and then I'll quietly exit.
Right.
A lot of people call him the startup CEO, right? I'm the startup CEO. I'm going to come in and start your service, get it going, and then hand it off to somebody. Though the service is not live yet. The only thing that's really happened is rebranding Layer 3 to T-Mobile T-Vision, I believe.
Right.
And maybe that's what he said he will stay for. Maybe that's it. Maybe his role maybe his role in the streaming service was overstated.
That's what I was wondering, and that's why I asked if you knew about the timeline. My thought was, as soon as I read this, maybe he was just there to kind of get things together, and now they want to pull in somebody with more, I guess, streaming experience, more experience in an industry or in a company that's already kind of been there, done that. So I'm wondering if it was sort of a mutual decision that he was ready to leave, but also the company was ready to bring someone else in.
Very possible. It could be both ends just not happy with the way this is going.
Mm-hmm.
Let's quickly review some of the things we've learned so far about T-Mobile TV. Let's call these the road bumps they've hit. Number one, T-Mobile early on, after they made this announcement, kind of said, hey, we're not getting the contracts we want. I think they said if we wanted to offer, with the contracts that were being offered, if we wanted to offer a PlayStation Vue-esque package, we would have to charge $10 more because we're being charged more than PlayStation Vue is because we're a smaller company. Mm-hmm. So they came out and said, hey, with this Sprint merger, we could use that to get a bigger base to demand a better deal to be more disruptive. Well, the Sprint merger has had a whole host of issues and roadblocks and delays as people try to block the Sprint merger. And now we've heard of other, a lot of disruption in the industry outside of T-Mobile. Fox being sold, most of it to Disney. Or was it Viacom and CBS mergers? Looks like it's back on. We'll see how that goes. And Scripps being bought by Discovery. These are all things that have probably directly affected or T-Mobile's ability to get contracts. I've heard from many people in the industry like, hey, I would love to strike a new deal with Fox, but the Disney's merger's happening, so they're not really signing any new partnerships right now until that Disney merger's done. And I've heard that from other places, when Scripps was final stages of merging with Discovery, they weren't really striking new deals with anyone. I wonder if T-Mobile just kind of hit this at the wrong time a little bit.
Yeah, and I think also making a statement like, we're here to disrupt the whole industry, that's kind of a big statement to make, and I'm wondering if they just didn't get overwhelmed with everything happening.
Yeah, that kind of happened to Apple. Remember how Apple came and disrupted music? And in the long run, I think it kind of worked out for music. The disruption where we were in the 90s to today, I don't think if we had tried to force the 90s model on today, the CD sales, etc., that music will be where it is today. But when it came Apple's turn to come to TV and be like, we want to do the same thing with TV that we did with music and sell cheap TV episodes, etc., it scared the living daylights out of TV executives. They were like, hey, Apple, thanks, but that TV service, I think I'm golfing that day for that meeting. I can't be there. So I wonder if maybe they were all like, ooh, I don't like this, the sound of this. I don't like what they're talking about disrupting what's made me very rich.
Right.
I'm going golfing. I got 18 holes somewhere.
I have to wash my hair that day. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
My kid has the chicken pox. It's going to be like 6 years to get over this. So I don't know. I hope T-Mobile is successful. I hope they launch something. Competition is good for cord cutting. It's good.
Do you think that they will be a good competition for things like PlayStation?
I don't think they can hurt it. I mean, here's the great thing about cord cutting. I've talked a lot about this, and as we hear about some cord cutting services failing, we're going to hear about more failing. The great thing about cord cutting is the best will rise to the top, because if there's a better service in about 30 minutes, I can cancel my current subscription and be over to the new one. And if T-Mobile is better, it will rise to the top. If it's worse, it will fall to the bottom. DirecTV Now, was very competitive at the first. It's had a lot of technical issues, a lot of others. They've raised the price. They cut the number of channels. Guess what? They're losing subscribers. People are saying, I have no contract. I'm gone. Now, can they turn around? They seem very confident that this is part of a long-term strategy of theirs. We'll see how that works out. But I don't think it will hurt if T-Mobile TV comes out and it's better than DirecTV now. In 15 minutes, I could be over to T-Mobile TV. So, I don't know. I don't think it will hurt. I just, I hope they strike the deals. They seem confident.
Yeah.
To this day, they seem very confident that they can successfully do that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll keep moving here in a second. Any last thoughts on that?
No, I'm with you. I'm always rooting for any company to come up with a service that we all like and to keep the price point where we want it. So, yeah, I'm rooting for them too.
All right. New streaming services. Discovery has one coming out in 2020. So we learned earlier this year that Discovery was partnering with BBC. For years and years, we've heard from Discovery that there will be a streaming service from Discovery to help make up for the lost revenue. Their CEO keeps talking about the $6 price range. What that'll include, we don't know. I saw some analysts talking about how Discovery would charge like $17 for their package. But that's kind of like, I remember there was a story, I think it was ABC or somebody had this it was like an anti-cord cutting one, and they said that Disney would be $40. Remember that?
Yes.
Disney Plus $40.
Yes.
Well, Disney Plus was $6.99.
Mm-hmm.
Discovery has clearly said they intend to have a $5-6 price point.
Mm-hmm.
And they've even talked about offering 17 channels for $5 at one point. Now, what a CEO talks about and what gets released are sometimes very different.
Right.
But the one thing that's consistent here is a low price point on this. That's going to be fairly cheap. And this, we've talked about in the past about how this is the first step to cord cutting, or to a la carte and cord cutting. That, hey, I can get all the Discovery channels for $5. Maybe Viacom does a similar thing where, hey, about that works out for Discovery to be about 20-some cents a channel. That's not 29 cents per channel. That's not a bad deal when you really think about it. Yeah, it may not be my ability to go in and say I want HGTV, Discovery, and TLC, and that's all I want. But it's a step in that direction. One of the interesting things that's kind of new that I think would be most interesting for us to talk about is the Discovery CEO says that as part of this service, BBC content will be leaving Netflix.
Yes.
And being exclusive to Discovery. So not only do you get Discovery content, you get BBC content with it. How upset are you over that? Are you not upset at all about that?
I'm not upset. To be honest, I don't watch much BBC content. I have watched some of their documentaries on Netflix, and I've really enjoyed them. And that was the first thing I noticed when you posted the story about this. So, I can see people subscribing to Discovery just for BBC. We have a huge group of readers that love BBC content. So I won't be surprised if that draws in a big audience.
Well, we also learned that BBC content's coming to Pluto for free later this year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or some point. They've announced it, but we don't know when it's coming. I always hate that. It's like, we're doing something really cool, but we're not telling you when.
We'll tell you about it later. When you're older.
Yeah. I'm very excited about the Discovery service. I may be more excited about BBC content coming to Pluto. I know Discovery has a lot of fans. I'm not so sure how successful this service will be if it's anything over $6.
Yeah, I think their price point sounds good, and I was looking at the list of channels. There's HGTV, Food Network, Travel Channel, DIY. I think that they have a good niche. I think that they can market themselves as just being a lifestyle streaming service, and I think that that will pull in enough people that it'll be worth it for them.
Yeah, I think they'll be successful if they price it right.
Yes.
For whoever that guy was that was saying it's going to be $17. If Discovery comes out $17, it's a dead service. Core cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because here's the flip side of it, I find a lot of people with Discovery watch one show, right? Toddlers and Tiaras or wherever it was on TLC. I love it. Well, hey, for $20, I can get an entire season of 20 some episodes, and have build my own catalog of that. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. If Discovery's successful, other networks will follow.
Agreed.
All right, let's keep moving on to a study that's kind of like everybody knew this, right? But at least we have it in writing now. A new study has come out that says Americans with more than 2 internet providers pay less for home internet. What I thought was maybe most interesting with this, we all knew it, right? If you have 1 internet provider, you pay more than if you have 5. But according to this study, 15 million Americans have 5 or more internet providers and are paying just $46.59 on average, compared to 1 internet provider charging $68.38 on average. And we have a full breakdown with a sliding scale on this and all the details. But what I thought was interesting with this is the driving force, right? This is why, for all the naysayers about 5G and fixed wireless and satellite internet from SpaceX and Amazon, guess what? Comcast, Spectrum, AT&T, they're going to have to react to the fact that there's competition now. They're going to have to react and offer something competitive. Do you know how many providers are where you live?
I was actually just looking that up, getting ready to do this podcast. I think I have at least a few options, but it's interesting because the last time I moved in Ohio, I've moved a lot. The last time I moved, I went into an apartment and they said, "Oh, we use Cox Cable," and that was it. They didn't tell me, you have options. Here are a few to choose from. I wasn't getting things in the mail, which was interesting. And I just said, oh, okay, well, I guess that's what I am going to use. But I was also 24, living by myself for the first time, and didn't know that I had the option to go and shop around. So I'm interested this time. I'm getting ready to move soon, and I'm really interested to see what happens when I really start looking at my options.
A lot of apartments do that, right? They have that bundle deal with Cox or Comcast, where it's like, we're really just go push everybody else away. If somebody lives here, they're going to get Comcast or Cox,
right?
Well, if it's a wireless internet, right? If it's 5G coming through the walls, cable provider or apartment and cable providers can't make these exclusivity deals,
right?
So I'm very excited about it because that breaks the bundle, right?
Yes, very excited about that too.
So what I want to know, for everybody listening, everybody watching this on YouTube, what are you paying? Do you know how many providers you have? I'm always amazed too how few people really know about all the provider options they have.
Right. Yeah, you're not stuck. You can shop around.
Yeah, we actually have 3 companies in our neighborhood. So I'm lucky at 3. There is a AT&T, which is ripping up our neighborhood right now for fiber. But excited about the long-term prospects of having fiber. Yeah. There is Spectrum. There is some other company I've never heard of, which is like a cable company running. I guess they have their own fiber lines. I'm not really sure. I looked into their pricing. The pricing wasn't bad, but it wasn't great enough to make me leave my business account. So I'm excited, because now I have 3, which would put me, according to this, an average of $58 versus $68, so saving $10.
Yeah.
If I can get 2 more providers, I can save another $12, and that adds up.
It'll be interesting whenever I am in the process of moving. I'm sure I'll get all the things in the mail. I'll make sure I hang on to them and do a little write-up about the options.
Find all the fine print.
Yes.
That asterisk that you need, like a super, get. It's the old joke, right? You get 2 magnifying glasses in class, and what does this do if I use both? I swear sometimes on those flyers, you need 2 magnifying glasses to read what it says.
Yep.
Well, let's go into the last story of the day. The Roku versus Fire TV versus Apple TV. Which one is right for you? And what I really kind of want to talk about here is we get this question. It seems like every week.
Yeah.
Every Q&A, somebody asks which one's better. I don't think there really is one that's better than all the others. I think it comes down to a personal opinion. For years it used to be like, hey, if you buy everything in iTunes, get the Apple TV. Well, it sounds like iTunes Access may be coming to Roku and Fire TV with the Apple TV app. We'll have to wait and see exactly what's available in it when it launches on those devices. But some of that content's coming to these other ones. And it used to be like, hey, if you use YouTube TV, don't get Fire TV because it doesn't have an official app. It doesn't work very well through the browser. Well, that's coming back. So I think now, so more than ever, it really comes down to personal opinion. Now there is a truth. What's $179 for a 4K HDR Apple TV versus what you get with a Roku Stick Plus for $59.99.
Mm-hmm.
So there is price points here. $49.99 for the Fire TV Stick 4K. Both, I'll be honest with you, performance-wise, both are very good options. The Roku Ultra at $99 is a surprisingly powerful stream player. Now, you may not like the user interface, but that doesn't mean it's not a good streaming player.
Right.
Jess, you wrote this story.
Yes.
What anything stood out from you where you would say there's still a point where I would say a Roku's better for some people than a Fire TV or the other way around, etc.?
I'm completely with you. I think it's completely personal preference. I actually scrolled down to the comments of this post. We had over 60 comments of people sharing which device they use, and I love it when that happens. I love at the end of a story when people chime in and say, well, here's what I found. So keep doing that. Please comment. A lot of Apple TV fans, and for the most part, they were just saying, I love the way it's set up. I love the menu. I love the remote. I love how everything works with my phone, works with my other devices, with AirPlay and everything. So I get that completely. I'm an Apple fan too. I use an Apple TV. I also use a Roku and a Fire TV. So I really do think it's just a matter of what you're used to, what other devices you use, and everything like that. So really personal preference.
I'll be very interested to see where we are a year from now. It's kind of like the old, remember when iPhones were first new and Android was kind of coming out? And there was a lot like, hey, this app is on iPhone and this app's on Android, but they're not on the other one. And that's kind of gone away. I have to joke about how it's all the same, right? You have a phone app, you have a calculator app, you have a Facebook app, you have, all these different features. The iPhone has FaceTime. Android does the same thing, has a different name for it, which is escaping me right now.
Isn't it Google
Duo or something? All I know is when I call my wife, there's just a button on the thing that says video. If I click on video, there's video on the phone.
And that's the thing, like you don't even notice the difference whenever you're used to using whatever you use.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going. Now, there's one outlier here, and we didn't really cover it in this particular post, but Android TV.
Yes.
Is Google even serious? Yes, they made some announcements. They are redoing the Google Play Store, maybe adding some new voice commands. But one thing that kind of really floated under the radar, it wasn't talked about during the keynote. Android TV did not come up one time during Google's keynote this week. But they are launching a new streaming player for Android TV, but only for cable providers. It's a streaming player dedicated for companies who want to replace their cable box with an Android TV device at a much lower cost. And there's all this talk about the growth of Android TV, but whenever you read it, it's always about the growth of Android TV when it comes to cable companies using the box to replace their expensive traditional hardware. At NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters, Google had a big booth, all kinds of technology. They had an Android TV wing, and the only thing they demoed were all these cable boxes running Android TV from all over the world. It was from Germany and Australia, and you name it, there was a box. I think there was some Spain was there too, and more. I wonder, I know they're also adding some new voice control. I know that they're redoing the Google Play Store to make it easier to subscribe to things through the Google Play Store in a single setup feature. Past that, it feels like Google for the last 3 years hasn't really cared about Android TV. There's a new head, but everything we're hearing is about TV. For cable TV, not for the end consumer. What are your thoughts on Android TV?
I think it's weird that they haven't done more with it. You would think, especially with Apple coming out with Apple Plus and really going full on into streaming, you would think that Google would just be doing more. They have the resources, obviously. I think that if they wanted to, they could be a big competitor. It seems weird that they're investing their resources in something that is so random instead of doing what I think the market trends would tell them to do? I'm confused.
I am very confused by the move of Google. Now, it's a very good streaming player. A lot of people you don't give Android TV a lot of love. Well, the biggest news of Android TV this week was that the TNT app and TBS came back to Android TV. Mm-hmm. Kind of cord-cutting news, kind of not cord-cutting news. When there isn't a lot of real news out there in the world of cord-cutting at this moment for Android TV is the reason we haven't been covering it. I'll be interested to see. I would love to see Google double down on Android TV. I'd love to see Google double down on the consumer-focused Android TV. Mm-hmm. Will that happen? I don't know. Anything you want to add here before we move on to what we recommend this week?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it.
Well, I guess I'll start. I was watching some Amazon Prime Video. And can I just say, Amazon has quietly added a ton of content. And the most annoying thing, real quick, not a news story. Have you noticed that the Amazons, when they announce what's coming next month, they add a ton of other content that they never really talk about? I was looking out here. They have the original Dune movie. They got the history of time travel, which is kind of a fun series. Boston Legal. House is now on there. Downtown Abbey, a ton of PBS content. Veep from HBO is now available with Prime. The Book Club, available with Prime. Just really good stuff. But what I wanted to point out, I love the book series. I watched the TV show. I have to finish. I'm a little bit behind. But The Expanse is on Prime. If you love science fiction, you love good science fiction, check out The Expanse. It's a well-done series. If you like reading books, read the books because they're fantastic. But The Expanse tells a fun, riveting, it's science fiction, so there's some fantasy here, but they also really worked hard to make it scientifically plausible in a lot of what they do, and it's well worth it. Check it out. So what would you recommend?
Well, I'm putting that on my list, so thank you. I would say we've been talking about how Starz has their $5 deal.
Well, yeah.
I'm not sure how long that goes on. Do you know what the date is for the cutoff?
I don't think they've announced a date, so don't wait if you want it.
Yeah, definitely get it, because my recommendation was, if you don't already have Starz, get that $5 deal. They have a ton of content. So over the weekend I was watching some documentaries. They have some really good stuff that I haven't seen elsewhere. They also have a category called Not on Netflix, which, love the shade. That was great. They also have some original content, which I didn't realize. They have a new show called, I think it's called The Spanish Princess. It's a very, it's a period piece, lots of drama. It's a little like The Crown for those who are into that show. Really good, really interesting, pulls you in right away. So I'm very into that, and I suggest everybody get that $5 deal.
There you go. One other, I didn't even realize this was on Amazon Prime. I scrolled down. Couple things on Amazon Prime. Tons of Viacom content, including SpongeBob SquarePants for all those SpongeBob SquarePants fans. But they have it we were just talking about BBC leaving Netflix. They have a huge BBC catalog.
Yeah.
Including Royal Close-Up, an inside look at the royal family through their photographer. So maybe perfect with the new baby here. If you're looking for BBC content leaving Netflix, maybe it's over on Amazon too. Just throwing that out there.
We should write up a post about where to watch BBC content.
There you go. All right, well, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us again, Jess.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening. If you like this, make sure to leave us a review. Hit that thumbs up on YouTube, or leave us a review on any of the podcast apps you watching this on or listening to it on. It really does help us. Hopefully we can help you break free from the high cost of cable TV. If you stay to the end, a little hidden bonus. You have until Monday. It's now May 9th when we're recording this and posting it. We're giving away a Roku Ultra, a $100 Netflix gift card, and a $100 Hulu gift card. But you only have until Monday to enter. I'll put a link to that down in the description down below if you want to grab that. All right, so I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Check us back on YouTube tomorrow for our Core Cutting Daily Update, and we'll be back next week for our full Core Cutting This Week podcast. Take care, everybody.